Well, Marvel is just releasing media that everybody loves and that is not controversial at all, especially on the internet. Uh-oh. The reception to the newest Marvel Disney Plus show, She-Hulk, which is about the titular character and her shenanigans as a lawyer, is mixed at best. The show, just like the comic, was always pitched and advertised as a sort of comedy that's more in the style of 1990s and 2000 eras lawyer sitcoms, just like Ally McBeal. The reviews on this range from it's okay, good-ish, I think, to
this is one of the worst things that Marvel has ever produced.
Before I start the video, I want to get my opinion out there first and say I think the show is not great, but it's also kind of harmless. It's just really cringy here and there, and it feels like Marvel is trying to make content and make films and shows now that are basically not just targeted to the Marvel fan base, but different parts of the Marvel fan base and different target audiences, which is very risky because there might be some alienation for some people, but I'm also almost admiring for being a little bit more risky. However, that's not the reason why I want to make this video. I want to talk about how She-Hulk is almost there. It's almost good, which makes it, at least for me, even more frustrating to watch. Hi everybody, this is Luke from Pulp and Art, this channel, and today's video is going to be about how I think She-Hulk could be improved and how I think it could be great. But it isn't. Let's look at the basics. How hypothetically, and I'm going to explain why I'm specifically saying hypothetically, this show is structured. She-Hulk works on a standalone story basis, just like old sitcoms. In every episode, we get a look at some new corner of the MCU that we might have not seen before. We meet weird C-list characters that are mostly just one-shot heroes or villains of the comics, while the show makes fun of them itself and the MCU, and it just doesn't work. I mean, already here comes the hypothetical part, because what I said about the standalone stories is not completely true. I think the structure is where the show really fails. Everybody and their grandma points out the not so polished CGI of She-Hulk, but I think in the right context that kind of wonky CGI could actually help the show's comedy. But that is not the main issue that I have. In theory, this sitcom style of storytelling could have been fantastic and very funny. I'm currently watching The Office for the first time, and in that show, the structure where every episode is just a setup for jokes and character comedy works perfectly. She-Hulk, on the other hand, doesn't really know what it wants to be. Is it a one-shot episode style of comedy? Is it an ongoing series with character development about Jennifer as a lawyer? I'm at episode 8 now with, the yellow one, and I still can't really tell you a lot about Jen as a person, other than the fact that she is struggling to make these two lives work together as She-Hulk and as a lawyer. She also doesn't really have that much luck with guys, and she's clumsy or something, or nerdy, or whatever, I don't know. Other than that, there is not too much of character depth, which in a comedy you don't necessarily need, but then it is important to make the comedy more of a focus. I personally would have loved to have that kind of Case of the Week style sitcom vibe for this, especially if it had more outrageous and weird kind of humor, because I feel like this plot and this setup with a Hulk lawyer, it needs this kind of weirdness. To me, it feels like Marvel Studios or whoever is holding back of some of this weirdness and instead replacing it with silliness. I think that's the main issue here. It's undecided to what it wants to be and how it wants to present these ideas. I had problems with some of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus, but most of them were consistent with their storytelling and atmosphere. She-Hulk is just not brave enough and needed more focus on creativity to also stand out between all of these other Marvel properties. Now let's talk about presentation. And no, again, I don't mean the wonky CGI. What I want to talk about is the direction and the visual storytelling and lack thereof of this show. This again is also a big problem. WandaVision is also a sitcom. It is silly in places, of course sad and mysterious in other parts, but it uses stylization and creativity to deliver its premise and its character moments. She-Hulk has the problem that the majority of Marvel media has. It looks bland, grayish, is shot with no creativity and therefore has no charm, no personality, and no distinction to other properties of this universe. If you make a sitcom about She-Hulk as a lawyer that takes on C-list superhero cases and occasionally talks to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, you want to make sure that the show looks and feels very different and distinct. Comedy lives through visual storytelling. Movies like Hot Fuzz and everything that Edgar Wright does use stylization, film editing and timing to make jokes and plot work. You know, like the basis of filmmaking.
Cringe.
In the case of She-Hulk, just look at this boring shot nonsense. It looks ugly, uninspired and flat. I think that's why the jokes also don't land. If told in a creative and visually more dynamic way, some of these outrageous plot points and nonsense could work way better. Instead, I feel nothing watching this. Some jokes work here and there, but most of the show just feels phony, unfunny, and way too bland. I don't want to be the guy who just mocks this show, because there are also a lot of incel toxic guys out there who just do it because I guess Jennifer is a woman and women whatever bad, She-Hulk bad, whatever. Okay, I'm not that kind of guy. So I want to be more productive and more constructive in my criticism also, and actually propose some new ideas to how this could have actually worked. Here is my simple pitch. Make this Marvel's Malcolm in the Middle. I know that that show was also heavily referenced in WandaVision, but I think it's the perfect candidate on how a show like this could work, where you use breaking the fourth wall moments way more often and way more in order to understand the characters better and give the show its own identity. Malcolm in the Middle also uses this element of telling self-contained stories that get really absurd and escalate into nonsense. And I think for a show about a green tall monster lawyer taking on clients like Frogman or something, this needed that level of creative madness, which it just doesn't. The show is way too bland, and this might sound a bit mean, feels like it is trashy? Like maybe that's what they're going for, referencing these trashy occupation sitcoms of the past, but since it's not presented interestingly, it just comes off as, well, trashy. And that's it for this video, folks. I hope you had some fun. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What are your thoughts about She-Hulk and maybe She-Hulk in the comics? Did you like the show so far, or did you also hate it? Just be civil, and if you could leave a like or, subscribe to the channel, that would be also fantastic. That's it from me for this video. Until next time, stay pulpy and stay artsy. See you guys.